So the iPhone 14 Pro released about 6 months ago, and as you can see, I was one of those people who traded in their top notch for the new dynamic island. The infamous dynamic island. So today I wanted to share with you what my experience has been switching from the 12 Pro to the 14 Pro, and if it's something that you should do as well. So, let's talk tech. I'm Agent with Ardently Tech. We believe tech was made to make our lives easier, so we're here to help you understand and discover new tech that improves your life. So if you're a fellow tech lover or someone who's ever been confused by tech, make sure to subscribe for more videos like this. So pretty much since the iPhone 5S, I've been upgrading every other year for the iPhones. So I had the 5S, and then I waited 2 years and I got the 6S, then I waited 2 years and got the 8 Plus, and that was the only time where I took 3 years instead of 2, and I didn't get the 11 Pro and I just went to the 12 Pro. I love the overall phone, and I thought it was a really great step up in design and in the color of the Pacific blue, so I had to go pick that one up. And since then, it hasn't changed that much. The 14 Pro doesn't look that much different from the 12 Pro. The glaring difference is the dynamic island. That being said, there are a lot of new features that I didn't have on the 12 Pro that are now in the 14 Pro, and so let's start off with the things that I did enjoy with this phone. The first thing that I really enjoyed was always on display, but not at launch. I didn't like it at launch. I'll go into that a bit more later, but after a few iOS 16 updates, they made it so that you can take the image off of the background and just have the black screen with text while your screen is always on. I love being able to glance at my phone while it's on my desk, see the time, see the weather, see my different widgets, and then any notifications that I might have that might be important for me to know without it killing my battery. I think that's really great. I think it's been the best feature and my most favorite feature of the iPhone 14, not the dynamic island. My iPhone 12 Pro also did not have the ProMotion display that was introduced in the 13 Pros. So the 14 Pro had the ProMotion display, and it's night and day difference when you compare the phones side by side. Now that being said, if you don't have an experience with the 14 Pro and the 12 Pro, you might not notice the difference, but like I said, side by side, you can really tell. So I was really excited about that. My 12 Pro, I had the Pacific blue, and I really loved that color, and I was sad to see that it wasn't going to be a part of the 14 Pro lineup. The purple was nice, but it's just not what I enjoy. I've been waiting for like a deep red, and that's kind of rumored to be for the 15 Pros. Really excited for that. Sad that I probably won't upgrade to that phone though. That being said, I was really excited to see a space black, not a space gray, a space black version of the new iPhone 14 Pro, because that's what I have been waiting for. I've been really waiting for a matte black. I think a lot of us have been waiting for a matte or a jet black, but this is the closest I think we'll get for at least right now. In comparison here, you can see the 13 Pro Max I use for work is space gray and this is space black, and you can see a slight difference in darkness here, but it's really noticeable when you look at the sides. The sides definitely show the black versus the silver and the gray, and yeah, it just feels like a nice, sleeker looking device. I also love the camera upgrade to this iPhone. See, the 12 Pro had great cameras, not gonna lie. Compared to the dual camera setup that I had on the 8 Plus, the 12 Pro was a big step up from what I had then. That being said, this 14 Pro is even larger of an upgrade from the 12 Pro despite it looking nearly the same. If you look side by side, the camera bump of the 14 Pro and the 12 Pro are significantly different, and that's because a lot of hardware is in there to make these pictures and these cameras work the way that they do. A couple new features that they introduced was the action mode and the ability to shoot 4K 24 frames per second on cinematic mode, which is also really great. Though I don't use those features quite often, it is nice to have when I'm doing product reviews or I'm trying to get some good walking shots of a product and I'm taking a walk around the park. Putting action mode really stills that footage down, and if I want some still footage or slow panoramic shots of a product, I can really take that with my phone and not have to pull out my camera. Obviously, that's a pretty specific case for someone like myself who's a YouTuber and needs to take footage of products and things like that. But if you're a student and want to make a short film for school or whatever, having an iPhone 14 instead of a larger camera could be the way to go. It won't completely replace your nicer cameras, but it is a nice stand-in. And if you shoot on ProRAW on this iPhone, you can also take advantage of the new 48 megapixel camera, which is really great. But personally, I haven't done that myself just because I haven't need to. But maybe for this review, I'll take a few and you'll see it right here. Now let's talk about the dynamic island, the most infamous part of this phone. Some people think it's a gimmick, some people think it's actually useful, and I'm somewhere in the middle. Small notifications, UI things look really cool, and it's really nice attention to detail. Just like if you're on a phone call, you'll see waveforms between you and the person that's you're on the call with, and you can see who's talking and what. If you guys end up talking over each other, you can visually see that, and you can visually see who's talking and who's not talking. So that's really cool. Just a small detail thing. And if you're listening to music or something like that, the color of the waveforms will match the color of the album cover of whatever you're listening to, which is again a small detail, but it's really cool. Of course, there's other integrations with other apps, whether you're using the timer, which for me, I found useful. I typically will just pull up my Apple Watch to do my timers for me, but being able to see it on the top of my phone if I have a timer running is also really nice to have on my iPhone. Outside of other things like navigation, though I don't use iPhone navigation, the integration of Google Maps isn't fully there yet. It's kind of there, not all the way, just like Apple's is. That being said, it is a nice feature, but it's not always useful and it's not always necessary. It's the only phone in the entirety of the lineup that needs to have specific UI for this dynamic island. And that leads me to what I don't like about this dynamic island and this iPhone 14 in general. There's so much potential for the dynamic island that I just don't feel like is being utilized enough. They dedicated a whole chunk of the presentation for this iPhone 14 to this dynamic island, and a lot of people either made fun of it, was impressed by it, and some just kind of confused by it. For me, I was all three. There's some predictions of the iPhone 15 that's going to introduce a dynamic island across the entire 15 lineup, which would be nice. And if that happens, I believe that more companies and more apps are going to have some more integration into that dynamic island. But for now, it's just kind of limited. It has so much potential, but it's not seeing it all the way through. And I have to say this, though we all saw this coming, I do find myself having to wipe my front camera lens more often than I did with my 12 Pro. And obviously that's because of dynamic island feature. I don't always touch it, but there are times where it does and it gets smudged and I have to give it a good wipe. It's not every time though. Some people will say it's every time, it is not. Now let's go back to always on display. Like I said, it launched with the whole photos in the background. You can see the photo behind it or whatever, a very dimmed image of what is your background. And theoretically, it's a good idea. It's cool, it's unique, it's a feature that makes it different from the regular always on displays and gives it a nice little Apple touch. Theoretically. A lot of people didn't like it. I thought it was pretty cool, but unfortunately it really drained your battery. It really did. I noticed a significant difference from when I had it on and when I turned it off. And I decided to keep that always on display off until they introduced the ability to take off that photo and have always on display just with a black screen. That really changed the game for me. I was able to use always on display. I still use it now and it doesn't drain my battery at all. It's just as much as it is if it was off, and I don't know why they didn't just make that a feature at the beginning. That being said though, it is nice that Apple listened and made that change. And there's a lot of backlash in the beginning because of the battery life being sucked by the always on display. People were saying that the battery life on this iPhone 14 is horrendous, and I have to say I don't agree. I think it's only because of the always on display that it really was bad. If it didn't launch with that, or it had the ability to turn off this background like it is now, I think it would be a different story, a different narrative. The 14 Pro battery life, in my opinion, and how I used it as someone who works as a social media manager constantly on my phone, my battery life was significantly better than my 12 Pro. And the last minor flaw that I don't really care about with this 14 Pro, it's not a huge deal, but because the camera bump is so large, it starts to interfere with some of your MagSafe accessories. Now, if you have a higher end iPhone case like the Mouse Limitless 5.0, they took attention to detail with that because they noticed it too. MagSafe magnets and the camera bump are really close together, so some accessories really rub against that bumper line if the cases have a protection around that. So mouse here, if you can see, mouse dips around the bottom of the camera lens to make sure that if you have a MagSafe accessory there, it will not interfere or rub against it. A lot of cases won't pay attention to that, and you'll see that most of the case runs right along the lines of the camera bump. It's a bit of a flaw. If you're looking for cases, by the way, I have a video where I shared my top 8 affordable cases that are under $50. So check that out. It'll be right here in the cards or over here. Before I go on, make sure to leave a like and subscribe to our channel for more videos like this. And if you want to get the iPhone 14 Pro through Amazon, you can use the Amazon affiliate links in the description below, or I'll even add some of the cases that I use and some of the accessories that I use for the iPhone 14 if you're interested in getting some of those. And if you don't have the iPhone 14 Pro or not thinking about it, tell me which phone you have right now and which one you're thinking of upgrading to in the comments below. So my overall upgrade of this iPhone 14 Pro compared to my 12 Pro is an 8 out of 10. Now, that's only because it feels like it's still missing a wow feature. The 12 Pro had the wow feature of the MagSafe. That's something that I was really looking forward to, and I got it because of that. The dynamic island was supposed to be their wow feature. Maybe crash detection, which I didn't really talk much about in this review because I haven't used it. I mean, it's a feature that you hope you never have to use. I'm sure it's going to save countless lives, and I'm grateful for it. But crash detection isn't necessarily something that you need to have an experience on a day-to-day. I decided to not really talk about that. But for me, those were enough for me to be interested in upgrading, but for other people, it might not be enough, especially if the 13 Pro. My thoughts are that the 13 Pro can probably do half of these things, they just didn't give them that features back then. This iPhone 14 Pro really does feel like an S upgrade, so I guess it makes sense because most of the phones that I've upgraded to every year in the past have been the S models of those phones. Again, for me, switching from my 12 Pro, I do miss the color, but now I have a better camera, always on display, which I really enjoy using, the ProMotion display, which is also a really nice upgrade from the regular screens, and of course Dynamic Island, which, like I said, has a lot of potential, and I feel like eventually we'll get there. It's just not there yet. So would I recommend you upgrading to the iPhone 14 Pro? That's a huge maybe. A huge maybe. Because if you have the 13 Pro, I think you should not upgrade at all. I think the 14 Pro is a really great device that will be a lot better than anything older than the 12 Pro. That being said, you might be content with what your phone has on the 12 Pro and you might not need to. So that's generally up to you. But I think if you're interested in going up to a Pro phone, if you have just like a regular 13, 12, or 11, maybe even just a 10, if you're rocking an SE with Touch ID or an older phone with Touch ID, this 14 Pro is definitely something I say you could upgrade to and you would be really happy. That being said, if you didn't want to get the 14 Pro and you wanted to wait a few more months for the 15 Pro, I don't think you'll be disappointed in that phone either. So let me know in the comments, are you going to be upgrading to the 14 Pro? Have you considered it? Have you upgraded? And if you did, are you enjoying it? We try to make sure we reply to every video comment that we get, so if you have any thoughts, let us know in the comments below. Follow us on Instagram and on TikTok at ArdenlyTech. Subscribe to our channel for more. And if you enjoyed this video, you might enjoy this one right here where Arnell shares his thoughts on the 13 mini and why he believes it's the best iPhone ever. We'll see you in the next video. Peace.